There's no other way to say it other than Alabama survived a game against South Carolina. And I say that in the strictest sense of the word. This was not a pretty game, but it was a game that Alabama needed to win if they had their hopes of still making the college football playoff, making the SEC championship game, and really achieving their goals that they set at the beginning of this season. This is one of those games where Nick Saban always had one of these, right? Even in his tenure, he had one of those where it kind of was a nail biter of a game. Generally, the Nick Saban games, they were not the unranked opponent. However, this was a game that a lot of people circled as a bit of a trap game because you had four ranked teams followed by a unranked team on the road with an elite quarterback. And it turned out that that was the case, right? Like this was a very, very good game. Ty Simpson, to his credit, didn't have his worst game ever by any stretch of the imagination. Didn't have his best game ever. But Ty Simpson ends up going, 24-43 for 253 yards. He does throw for a couple of touchdowns in this game. But really, the key to this game was Alabama's defense. Alabama's defense made huge plays when they needed to, right? First thing, South Carolina gets the ball. They go down the field. They get a field goal. And then Alabama's offense goes three and out. And Alabama punts off to South Carolina. And Alabama's defense is able to get an interception return for a touchdown off of a bobble by Faison, the running back at South Carolina, which really helps give Alabama a lead in this game in which Alabama is able to, obviously they have the lead in the game. Then Alabama is able to score on offense, to get a little bit more comfortable lead in the game. But then for a long stretch of this game, Alabama's offense just stuttered, and Alabama's offense did not seem to be able to get much going. It really felt like the creativity was lost. Part of it did feel like, you were just, inches away, so to speak, of a really, really good breakout game, right? Ty Simpson missed Ryan Williams on a deep ball. There was a great throw that was just had better defense by South Carolina. There was a couple of just, Ryan Williams ends up dropping a ball on fourth down that he had and just lost as it goes down. There was just a few different plays that you saw in that instance where it was, it felt like you were a couple of plays from Alabama really breaking this game wide open on the offensive stretch, and Alabama just couldn't get anything going. Once again, Alabama could not run the ball on the ground. This has been a constant here recently. Alabama, goes for 72 yards rushing, averaging just three a carry. By far, the only, bright spot in the running game was Jeremy Bernard. He actually gets the game-winning touchdown on a run that really, seals the game, and we'll talk a little bit about that here very shortly. But Alabama struggled in this game pretty mightily on offense. And it was their defense that really, again, they held the line. They were able to do what it took for Alabama to win this game. From the receiving side, really the biggest bright spot in the receiving room was probably Daniel Hill, the running back. You Everybody talks about his size as a running back, but I think that his catching ability and what he's able to do out of the backfield in the receiving game, I thought was really, really big for Alabama. He had a very good game. He had 76 yards on just four receptions with a 41-yard long. Really, really good game receiving out of the backfield. Um, Alabama's offensive line did struggle a bit in this game. Once again, this was a situation where uh, Alabama, just really did not have uh, quite the game a um, from an offensive perspective that you would hope that they have. Ty Simpson gets sacked and loses a fumble in what was just an absolute destruction. And from the blind side, the offensive line continued to just have some issues. Wilkenform played in this game, had four pressures that he gave up. The offensive line had a couple of additional holding penalties, and just in general, it felt like Dylan Stewart and that defensive line, I'm sorry, for South Carolina was really feasting for large portions of this game. A lot of that fed to Alabama was trying to, get the screen game going and trying to get other things going as offshoots of the running game. And they weren't able to get any of it going because South Carolina's defensive tackles, to their credit, were just batting balls down. And Alabama just was unable to do what they should have been able to do from a running and from an offensive perspective. However, when you go to the defensive side of this game, Alabama honestly played a really, really good game on defense. Were there a couple of busted plays? Sure. But in general, I thought that Alabama played fairly well. Bray Hubbard had a great game. He had 8 tackles. Nikhai Hill-Green, I talked about how poorly he had played in some other games this season, so I want to make sure that, I may have tore him down when he was playing poorly, but he deserves a lot of credit. He played very, very well in this game. 7 tackles, all 7 solo. Just a really, really good game by him. Justin Jefferson played a very good game. Deontay Lawson played a pretty good game. From our linebacker perspective, this was really probably one of their better games. Deontay Lawson makes by far the biggest play of the game in the strip of Lenore Sellers, the very end of this game. Again, we'll get to that in just a second. But I thought that in general, our defensive backs and defensive room in general played pretty well. The one busted play that you would kind of look at is the deep ball to Nick Harbor. That's a guy that you just kind of have to know where he's at and have to have safety help over the top because he's going to run by you at every instance that he gets a chance. This is a 10-100 meter guy. Everyone talks about the physical specimen that he is and the fact that you had him in solo one-on-one. He just toasted you, right? There's no other way to put it. That was a perfect play call. And when you put Nick Harbor out there, it just doesn't work, right? Really didn't love the defensive play call on that specific thing. Don't know if it was busted or whatever, but credit South Carolina for taking advantage of Alabama in that moment. And then, Justin Jefferson also, one more thing before we get to kind of the turning points of this game, but Justin Jefferson is able to, it's not going to go on the stat sheet, but the interception return for a touchdown that Alabama does get in this game by Deshaun Jones was really aided by the fact that Justin Jefferson held him up, right, as he looked like he was falling or going to go out of bounds. Justin Jefferson held him up and then was able to block for him to help him get into the end zone. I thought that was actually very, very important in this game because, again, early in this game, Alabama was down. And if it wasn't for that interception return for a touchdown, Alabama honestly was just moving the ball non-existently on offense, and Alabama couldn't get much going. So it really felt like that defensive touchdown was the only thing that really gave a spark to the whole team. It really felt like more of a team win in that moment. Then when we move to the fourth quarter and what is going to go down and what's going to be kind of talked about, Alabama goes down 22-14 and with about 8 minutes to go. And Alabama puts together a drive, and Ryan Grubb had some really, really good play calls. And Alabama puts together a drive that puts them, and they score on a really, really good. They put Jeremy Bernard in the backfield, have him as the running back, do just a little out. He hits it in the flat, he scores on a touchdown. Then you have a bit of a trick play. The setup was more of a trick play, but itself, it didn't seem like much of a trick play on the 2-point conversion. Direct snap to Jeremy Bernard, who hands it off to Ty Simpson. You faked the reverse to Ryan Williams, and really you just pitched it out in the flat to Josh Cuevas. I actually called that I thought that Cuevas was going to be the guy that you went to, but even before I saw kind of what you were at on the field, I think that Cuevas this season has been really, really good in the red zone. He's been phenomenal at having sure hands. He's also just a bigger body. And, when you think about stuff like that, he's usually your tight ends are going to have a linebacker or a safety on them, and that you prefer that over having a corner. In my mind, on a 2-point conversion play, so I actually called it out in the bar we were watching at. I thought that Cuevas was going to be the guy who we went to, and indeed he was, right. But Alabama gets that, and Alabama kicks off to South Carolina. And South Carolina starts marching down the field, and it looks like South Carolina is trying to set up what will be a game-winning field goal because it's 22-22. And the best play of the day and the kind of the game-changing play was made by Deontay Lawson and Tim Keenan, I guess, as kind of a combination. Deontay Lawson and Tim Keenan go to stop Lenore Sellers, and as they're getting him to the ground, Deontay Lawson rips at the ball and gets it out. And just so happens Tim Keenan's kind of laying on it automatically. So he recovers the ball, and Alabama gets the ball on the South Carolina side of the field. That sets up the game-winning run that we talked about just a little bit ago with Jeremy Bernard. Jeremy Bernard continues to be that gadget guy on our offense that can kind of do anything. He's somebody that clearly Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb have a ton of trust in. He's been with them for multiple years when they were at Washington, and he just continues to be the guy on Alabama's offense. That's kind of, if you're to not consider Ty Simpson an option. He is the most important guy on the offense. And you could even argue, even with Ty Simpson, he is a huge importance on the offense. Kind of a lot of the plays run through him. And I thought that he has been very, very important to our success this entire season. And to a degree, we kind of go as he does. And thankfully, he is super sure-handed and has been very, very good this season. When you look at the stats are a bit jarring, right? The things that kind of jump out at you. Alabama did well on third down and fourth down, even though the offense felt pretty poor in this game. And I think the reason it felt that way is Alabama, the ones that they did not convert were just immediate three and outs, which made it feel worse, which led to South Carolina actually beating us in time of possession, which is not something you've seen Alabama really have this season. Alabama has done a really good job of holding onto the football and keeping their defense fresh. And Alabama's defense was super tired in this game. Honestly, the fact that Deontay Lawson and Tim Keenan are able to come up with that play at the end of this one, just credit to them because they were super gassed and the defense was definitely, this is one of the ones that they were definitely more tested than they have been in some other games. Lenore Sellers, to his credit, I thought was pretty good in this game. He did end up throwing the one interception, which was totally not on him. It was bobbled by his running back, so you definitely can't blame him on that one. They used Lenore Sellers running the football a little more than I think they have this season. I know that Rickson Lane, when we talked to him, would believe in South Carolina. He kind of was of the mindset that they've been doing a lot of just runs up the middle, and Lenore Sellers has not had the option to keep the ball, and he was super upset by that. So I thought that in general, South Carolina was a little bit more exotic with their play calling this week. They spread out the ball a lot more, and I know that's something that Brooks Austin had mentioned, where they were doing a lot of bunches. I feel like I didn't see quite as many bunch formations this game, so it really felt like South Carolina definitely mixed it up a little bit. Um, and it really felt like they were playing inspired football. No other way to put it. I thought that they played a very good game. And fortunately for Alabama, and fortunately for me, I guess, Alabama made a couple of plays on defense that really were the difference maker. And that was that touchdown that we talked about. And then Deontay Lawson forcing the fumble. The one play, I'm not somebody that, from a penalties perspective, really harps on this kind of stuff. I just wanted to mention it because I know there was a guy that talked about it on Twitter. Jalen Mbakwe, if Alabama ends up losing this game, it kind of was going to be partially pointed at Mbakwe, the fact that when Alabama goes to receive a punt, Mbakwe gets blocked into the punt, and by getting blocked in the punt, South Carolina was able to hop on it and get a ball, in Alabama's side of the field, which is how they go up 22-14. He talked about how that was kind of actually two fouls on that play. They both blocked him in the back, which obviously is a penalty, and additionally blocked him into the ball, and he was not engaged in the block. So by pushing him into the ball, that's supposed to also be a penalty. Obviously, neither one of those are called. South Carolina is able to score. Do I think that that's the difference maker in the game? If Alabama loses, maybe. Maybe it ends up getting talked about, but I do think that the fact that Alabama was able to win despite what, potentially was a bit of a sketchy call, or no call, I guess, so to speak. South Carolina fans are going to point to the holding that was called on the play where Lenore Sellers does get a touchdown, where it calls back Lenore Sellers' touchdown. That one was a little weak as well. The referees in this game were not nearly as bad as I've seen in the SEC, but did they still blow a couple of calls? Sure. Right. I wanted just to mention it because I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't say anything about it. I know somebody's going to say something. So I wanted to say something about it, but do I think it's the difference in this game? No. I think that Alabama and South Carolina played a very good game. I think this was a situation where Alabama had four huge ranked opponents that they played, and they, put their heart out there, and then they ran into a South Carolina team that really had nothing to lose and had an offensive coordinator that obviously had something to prove against Alabama, given the fact that he was our head coach at one time. Additionally, an offensive coordinator that had people protesting his firing, right, wanting him to be fired during this week from students and stuff. And I really think this was a standpoint where Alabama did what it took to win the football game. And at the end of the day, the most important thing when you look at these games is there a win in that column, right? Is there a one in the win column? And Alabama is able to survive in advance and have that one in that win column. So I think that's really what you have to take away from this game. Are there some very important characters that helped you get there? And Deontay Lawson and Justin Jefferson and Jeremy Bernard and Ty Simpson. And, there's plenty of guys that helped you get to that point. Absolutely. But I think the most important thing that Alabama did in this game is find a way to win when you didn't have your best. And I thought that they were able to do that and able to do that as success. And I thought that that's kind of the key that you kind of have to point to. And so Alabama wins and they survive in advance and move on to a bye week. And then they will host LSU at home. So, obviously we'll be breaking down that game. If you're interested, subscribe to the channel for more. Obviously, before that game, we have Alabama basketball tipping off next Monday. The exhibition, if you're watching this the day that it comes out, will be on your TV at 2 p.m., probably about the time that this video actually comes out. And then, as I said, we'll be doing the live stream at 7 p.m. on Sunday. If y'all are interested, we're going to potentially be doing some more of those. So go and subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.